there's always something on the other side there for you tomorrow. And I just need you to dream big and hope for a better life.
Someone cares about you.
There's a reason why your heart is beating.
You still have a purpose.
Don't give up.
It's important to know that you're not alone.
You're not alone.
You're not alone.
You are not alone.
Walking while listening to this podcast is a great way to multitask and benefit both your body and mind. It's an opportunity to get some exercise, relieve stress, and enjoy some entertainment all at the same time. Plus, being outdoors and moving can help boost your mood and creativity. So let's take a walk together and explore while I talk with this week's guest, Donnell Johns, retired U.S. Army Command Sergeant Major and founder of Veterans Growing America. His passion for supporting veterans is truly inspiring. With 26 years of military service and leadership experience, he has empowered over 1,100 military-connected business owners and hosted numerous events. His personal experience in supporting veterans are truly impactful. Donnell, welcome to the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. I'm thrilled to talk with you today.
Hey, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, as everyone fires up their Strava app to record their walk, I'd like to learn a little bit more about you. Where'd you grow up? What was childhood like for you?
So I grew up in San Francisco, California, actually in the city of San Francisco. I really enjoy San Francisco. I'm glad that it's a place that I grew up. It's a melting pot of so many different people. I grew up in the Fillmore district, right down the street from Fisherman's Wharf. It was a beautiful place to grow up, but I didn't see a life for me there after I joined the military. It wasn't conducive to me, being prosperous in the city. I just didn't see it there. So I joined the military when I graduated high school, and served 26 years, like you said, and I had an amazing career.
Now, you went from coast to coast within the Army, and you said you didn't necessarily see the future that you were hoping to build in the San Francisco area. So how'd you go about deciding to join the Army, and where did that take you to get you to settle on the East Coast?
So I actually looked at joining the Air Force first. I actually went to the Air Force recruiter's office 3 times to try to join the Air Force, and the guy wasn't there. Back then, they didn't have those things called cell phones. So you couldn't call anybody. You could call and leave a message, but the guy wasn't there. And I had to catch the bus from one side of town to the other to his office. And a friend of mine, his mom, after we got out of school one day, actually we got off work. I was working at Marine World Africa USA in Vallejo, California. That was one of my first jobs. A friend of mine, his mom, brought a recruiter to the house, and she had him in front of all 4 of our friends, and all 4 of us actually joined the Army. He wanted me to be, he asked me if I wanted to be infantry. I was like, no, don't want to do that. He was like, you want to jump out of planes? I said, no. He said, do you want to, be airborne or anything? I was like, no. He was like, well, what do you want? I said, does the Army have offices? I said, I want to work in the office. And he was like, yes, the Army has offices. I said, well, if the Army has offices, I'll take one of those. And I ended up joining the Army as a human resource professional. Back then, it was a 71 Lima administrative specialist. And I went from basic training, AIT, to Desert Storm was my first duty. It was my first duty station right out of AIT. Actually, I went to AIT. We went to grave registration school, then Desert Storm. It was supposed to be a 2-week school. It was a 2-hour school, a crash course in toe tagging. And my first duty assignment was Desert Storm. After that, I went to Fort Eustis, Virginia, which was my first duty station. And I found what I was looking for as far as a place that I wanted to live for the rest of my life. I didn't end up staying there. But I found it when I came to Virginia. It was just like, this place is love. Like, the people are amazing. I didn't see any riffraff or anything like that going on like I did in San Francisco. And I just found nothing but love and people that loved each other and that were about business. I ended up going from there to Somalia, from Somalia back to Fort Eustis, from there to Korea, and then from Korea to Denver, where I met my wife. I was stationed out there back, I think it was 1996 or 95 is when I was in Colorado. I got out of the Army and transferred into the Army National Guard as a recruiter, and went from a recruiter, and I ended up being the recruiting sergeant major for the Colorado National Guard, and then ended up being, from there, I went to DC and was the first Army National Guard G1 Sergeant Major in Army National Guard history. And then from there, I was the recruiting and retention Sergeant Major for the DC National Guard, the one that y'all saw on TV during the craziness that happened. I actually left before all of that happened, but.
Yeah, that's quite a career, Donnell. For starters, not being able to contact the Air Force, I feel like their recruiting is kind of really on par with the people that they have. Is you really have to kind of camp outside their door if you want an opportunity to serve in that branch. But the Army back in the early 90s, you're trying to set yourself up for a desk job and you get sent to war. And I will say any type of support unit in a combat zone is greatly appreciated, and the amount of work that is done to go through there. So how did that end up meeting your HR expectations?
Funny story. So this is a funny story. So all through basic training and AIT, they were telling us we're going to war the entire time. And I didn't believe them. I'm like, what am I going to do? Throw a typewriter at people? I'm like, I'm not going to war. When I say I didn't believe them, I didn't believe them. I'm like, how? Right? And we were standing at AIT in formation, and the commander starts reading off names. He said, you're going 1 to 2 places. He said, if I read off your name, you're going to postal school, then to Desert Storm, or you're going to grade registration school, then to Desert Storm. And so I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. And they read off my name and it said grade registration school. I was like, get out of here. I didn't believe it. And then, it just happened really fast. We went from there to Fort Lee, to that 2-hour crash course. And then from there, we was on a plane to Desert Storm, my first duty assignment. That blew my mind. Times were different back then. We didn't have email or any of that type of stuff. Everything was done on paper. So it was a lot more dangerous for an admin back then than it is today. Your admins are, behind the wall and they can email stuff to the headquarters and all of this stuff now, where back then you had to take that piece of paper from point A to point B in the combat zone. It was different.
Man, I can only imagine what it was like 10 years before I showed up in Afghanistan, because when we showed up in Afghanistan, like you said, we were still handwriting letters. Cursive or block capital letters is kind of what we wrote back home, right? And then eventually they transitioned into you were able to go on a website and write a letter that would then be printed out in country. And now everything's, email, cell phones are actually available in a lot of these countries now. But I'm really curious, with your lengthy career, and you even mentioned going to Somalia, how did you kind of navigate what your expectations were when you were signing up to your actual assignments before moving into recruiting?
At the time, I wish I still did this, but I lived in the moment. I really didn't think about, when you're young, you feel invincible and nothing. After I went to one conflict and then going to another conflict, it didn't even bother me. I was just like, okay, we're going on another trip. And I think I'm blessed because my mom, she really stayed prayed up and, had her whole church praying for me and all of that type of stuff. But I never really felt like I was in harm's way, even when we were in situations of harm's way. I felt like I was good. I didn't feel like, I felt invincible when I was young.
That's kind of the hubris of youth, right? We we forget to tell our parents stuff, or we don't actually realize the calamity that we're putting ourselves in. And then when we look back 10, 15, 20 years later, we're just like, man, if I would have been prepared, or if I only would have known, right? But you progressed well throughout your career and became, like you said, command sergeant major, which is no easy feat. And then to go on to be the first command sergeant major at in you said the DC area?
Yeah, so I was the Army National Guard G1 Sergeant Major, which is the so in the Army, the G1 is the Human Resource Sergeant Major. So I was the lowest ranking admin to the highest ranking admin in the Army.
Wow. After achieving such a transition in the military and having this very full career, meeting your wife, starting a family, how did you begin transitioning out? What were some of the challenges that you faced, and how'd you go about overcoming them?
Luckily, I had a recruiting background. And so my recruiting background allowed me to create relationships outside of the military that your average everyday soldier wouldn't have. And through those relationships, it allowed, doors to open for me and me to have certain types of conversations before I left the military, which was very helpful because transitioning is very traumatizing. Let me just say that. It's hard, because you're coming from this huge organization that's built to support you in everything that you need, to coming out of the military being an army of one, right? A true army of one where you don't have the support. You can't go to the admin's office and have them fix your pay. That's not available for you anymore. There's a lot of stuff that I relied on that I had in the military that I didn't realize that I had until I got out. Luckily, I had relationships outside of the military to help me through the transition process, which was very crucial. But at the same time, it made it easier, but it was still hard.
Yeah, that's so true. Those times of transition are so difficult. I used to have a pastor that would tell us, make sure that you're handling your transitions one at a time and grieve the loss of the former. And I know that when I got out, I did not necessarily grieve the loss of my military career. What I did is I avoided all things military and worked on my transition of education, community building. Because like you said, the everyday soldier, sailor, airman, Marine who isn't in a recruiting place, our community is so insulated. And when we get out, that community is still very insulated, and now we are no longer a part of it. We can't be a part of it. And so we have to start building our own community where we decide to reside. And that's so difficult. Did you experience any of this distancing from service members, veterans, military in pursuit of your civilian goals?
Absolutely, I did. So for the first 2 years, I didn't even tell anybody that I was in the military. In fact, I didn't tell anybody because I wanted to see, because as a command sergeant major, when you walk in a room, people stand up, and whatever you ask for, you get. And so I went from a place where I was able to get everything that I asked for to nothing. And so I wanted to see who I was in this world and do things on my own merit without the military.
Mm-hmm.
And it was tough. It was tough trying to figure out what that was. And the funny part is that once I went to a military organization that supported military and went back and got with them, I was like, this is where I need to be. And then once I found that community again, I was like, I need more of this. That's what I craved. And so I built that.
are you talking about kind of the beginning of what you're doing now with Veterans Growing America and its mission to bring other service members, families, and veterans together?
Yes, absolutely. And you just made me remember. People ask me, all the time, where did this come from? And now I remember where it came from because I was going through this at the time. I remember I was a part of the chamber and I started my own business. I started a leadership consulting firm. And my goal was to create leaders like I did in the military, and help leaders get the most out of their team. I was able to do some amazing stuff in the military by inspiring other people. And I'm like, I could teach other people to inspire other people, especially civilians. That's where I wanted to go with this. And then I went to an AUSA meeting, and the AUSA is Association of the United States Army. They have a chapter here in the DMV area, and I went to that chapter meeting. And when I walked in, I was just like, this feels like home. And I'm like, I can build something like this for other veterans because AUSA, even though they support all branches of service, it's Army. But when we get out, we only have one title, veteran. And that it doesn't say Army veteran, Navy veteran, it says veteran. And I wanted a space where veteran entrepreneurs and their family members could come together and showcase their passion, their purpose, and turn it into prosperity. And so that's where Veterans Growing America was initially born. And then I went to the Military Influencer Conference, was the next place that I went to. And I started meeting all of these entrepreneurs. And I'm like, I love this energy because entrepreneurship, when people are entrepreneurs, they have a different energy. Their energy is that go-getter energy, and they're always upbeat and positive about the stuff that they're passionate about. And I felt that at the Military Influencer Conference. I got to meet Cortez, and the guy that ran it. Me and him are, friends to this day. And I actually met a bunch of my business partners that we're still, working together. And we met through the Military Influencer Conference. That was like, I saw it again. I'm like, this is where I need to be. And they had a vendor section in there. And I'm like, I like this. And the next place that I went was Burbiz. I'm like, this is cool. And I met Scott that runs Burbiz, and I saw that, and it was information tables. And I'm like, this could be vendor tables, people selling their products and services, and it could be open to America and they could sell their products. And I was thinking major scaling with that. And so we did our first Veteran Business Expo. It was actually a pop-up in Manassas, Virginia at a veteran coffee shop. So this guy, veteran-owned and operated coffee shop, I told him about my vision, and he was like, you could do that here. And I was able to do our first Veteran Business Expo at Girani Coffee House in Manassas, Virginia, and it was phenomenal. We did it on December 18th of 2019. We had over 900 people show up and support veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs. It was just a phenomenal day. We started actually people were pouring in even before the doors opened. The doors were supposed to open at like 9:00, but like at 8:00, people were coming. And throughout the day, we went from 9:00 to like 6-7 o'clock at night. And people were just pouring in to support what we were doing. And I was like, we're on to something here. And since 2019, we've been going, even through the pandemic, we've been going strong. So that tells you the resilience of our community and, us making things happen. And it's been going ever since. And now we have a store, an actual physical pop-up store in Woodbridge, Virginia. We've done over, it's countless events now. Every weekend we do a pop-up in there. We showcase, different veteran businesses in there all the time. And it's grown since then.
That's incredible. We loved meeting one of the members of your team at this year's Military Influencer Conference, and you touched on a lot. When nowadays, or at least when I was getting out, when we are transitioning out of the military, we go through something called TAPS, Transition Assistance Program, and they talk a lot about getting jobs or going back to school and how to utilize your benefits. One of the things that isn't really touched on is the idea of becoming an entrepreneur. Since I've moved into the business space, I hear that word used a lot, and it can have positive and negative connotations. But a lot of the times, unless you're exposed to small business ownership, it seems like a very nebulous and daunting thing. And so for yourself, as you were transitioning out of Command Sergeant Major and wanting to do this leadership development coaching, what made you start to pursue entrepreneurship, and what what new challenges did that now bring with you? Because it's not a traditional route, and any entrepreneur will tell you it is a roller coaster of emotions and effort. So what was your experience like?
A roller coaster of emotions and effort. So I remember, being that entrepreneur, and I thought that I was going to get out and I was just going to tell people that I'm a retired Command Sergeant Major and they were going to hire me. But I didn't even tell people that I was a Command Sergeant Major, first and foremost. I just, was like, I started this leadership consulting firm, and, I wrote my business plan out. I went to Boost to Business and I wrote it out. I said I was going to make $30,000 a month. That didn't happen. And it was really tough. I remember one day waking up and I was crying for some reason. I'm like, why am I crying? I'm like, there's nothing wrong with me or anything like that. But I was crying because I was missing the camaraderie of the military. I was missing being able to take care of people. I was missing supporting people in a way that they couldn't be supported while in the military. And then I also had to focus on what I wasn't good at. And, in entrepreneurship, you got to be everything. I'm an admin guy, right? And a sales guy, but I'm not a marketing guy. I'm not a finance guy. I'm not a supply guy. I'm not all, if you think about, business, and you think about starting the military, it's really the same thing, but it's just different. You're just using those different terms, but everything that I just named is in the military, and it's also in business. And so in my thought process, I said, I can run a company. I did that. I can run a battalion. I did that. I can run a brigade. I did that. But starting as a solopreneur and having to be all of those things, I've never did that. And one of the things that helped me along the way, and it's funny, it's 1 mile, right? What you guys do. So I ran. I got up every day and I ran, and that helped me with that energy that I needed to make it throughout the day. And I remember one day I woke up and I tried to put my pants on and they fell down because I lost so much weight because I ran about 2 to 3 miles a day, every day for 7 months, 2 to 3 miles a day. And if it wasn't 2 to 3 miles, sometimes I ran 7 miles. It was just whenever I was feeling like I needed some motivation, I ran, and running allowed me to think and come up with ideas. And then after my run, I would turn on my live and I would talk to whoever would listen on live about what I was thinking about, what I was going through. I just would talk, and give some advice to someone that was dealing with whatever I was dealing with. And I just made it into a story and just talked about it. If you go back into my Facebook feed all the way back in, 2017, you'll see me talking and about different things. But that's one of the things that truly helped me through all of this was talking until I was able to find my tribe.
That's amazing. It's amazing what movement and community can do for us, especially bringing up different ideas, being able to test things off of partners and counterparts. For me, when I go out on a jog, I come home and I have about 20 new ideas that I bring to my wife, and I'm like, "What do you think about this?" And she's like, "Give me one. Give me your best one." And so I have to filter it down and whatnot. But with your leadership background, with your recruiting and sales, when you had your first pop up in December of 2019, and then had to essentially not do anything in person for nearly 2 years in the DMV area. How did you bring veterans together and form the Veterans Growing America Network when everybody was told, stay away?
You find loopholes. That's what we do best. We find loopholes, right? So the first thing that we did, oh man, you're bringing me back to something. So our first event, was at Girani Coffee House, and then our second event was supposed to be at a fire station. We rented out a fire station, really, and it was going to be. We had 60 vendors sign up to be vendors at this event, and it got shut down because it happened on the 12th. And no, the event was supposed to be the 14th, but COVID got shut down on March 12th. So we moved that event online, and we hosted a Veteran Business Expo online. And it was actually pretty cool. We had 30 vendors, if my memory serves me correct, and we had over 300 people log in and support those entrepreneurs.
Wow. Something
unfortunate happened that day. My mom passed away that day. And it was the most painful day ever. And I wasn't going to do any more expos. But at the same time, I know that my mom wouldn't want me to quit. And then I saw what we were able to accomplish as a team. And we were able to turn lemons into lemonade that day when we got shut down by the pandemic, and we were able to make a Veteran Business Expo happen all online. It was magic that happened that day. And so my mom passed away as soon as the event started, and the team just kicked in and took over. And it was an amazing day. I didn't have to worry about anything, and they took over and made sure that the event happened on the back end. They were so fired up, they wanted to do it more. This is how we got around not being in person. We actually didn't do another event online, but we did do another event in person. And we did it. We did an event December at Fort Belvoir. So if you remember, so March of 2020, December of 2021, people could still go outside, but they had to have masks on and be 6 feet apart and all of that. And so the civilian sector didn't allow anybody to do anything. But if you think about it, the military has its own laws and rules. So that's when we went on Fort Belvoir, and we did a Veteran Business Expo at Fort Belvoir. We just did it 6 feet apart. So we had vendor booths 6 feet apart at the Army and Air Force Exchange. And people came to shop with us. In fact, we went all over the United States. We went to Fort Hood. We went to Fort Bragg. We went to South Carolina. We went to North Carolina, and then all through the DMV. And it was an amazing run. Every place that we went, we had 20 to 30 veteran businesses in those areas popping up at those locations, which was amazing. I'm going to rewind a little bit. So after the pandemic, I went back to the first place that I asked to have a Veteran Business Expo. I was going to rent the street out in front of my store. So Stonebridge Shopping Center was the first place that I went to, and they told me no. They said, no, you can't set up a Veteran Business Expo here for two reasons. One, because they had a contract with the with another organization to do expos there. And I went back there 3 years later, and I was like, can you rent me the street? And they told me no again. But I wasn't taking no for an answer. I'm like, you got to do something for me. And they did. They walked me to the store that we're in right now, opened the doors and said, how would you like to rent this to do veteran business pop-ups every weekend? I said, let's do it. So since then, we've been in there for a year and a half doing veteran business pop-ups. A year and a half in that same location. We have the name Veterans Growing America. And the reason why it's Veterans Growing America is because we will get back to growing America again, but we wanted to make sure that we have this model of the store in place. The store wasn't in our business plan, but now it is. And we want to be able to we're going to continue with the pop-ups in other locations, but we're just making sure that we have the model for the store, and eventually we'll have stores in other locations. And if not, we'll have chapters of people doing veteran business expos in these different locations.
That'll be awesome. But now you're speaking like a true entrepreneur, one that is out there to improve their communities, improve the lives of others, because that's the purpose of being an entrepreneur. That's the purpose of having our own small business, is to bring value to the community in which we serve. And it sounds like you do just that. Would you be able to share maybe one or two stories of some of the vendors that you've helped and the impact that you've had in their lives?
Absolutely. You probably met several of them at MIC. Did you see Triple Nickel there?
Yes, sir.
They started with VGA. Did you see Act Now there?
Absolutely.
Act Now Education? They started with VGA. In fact, we met at MIC, and we have been, so we call ourselves brother organizations where we support each other in our businesses. So Triple Nickel, when they first got started, they were popping up with Veterans Growing America. In fact, one of the founders of Triple Nickel is also a founding member of Veterans Growing America, where when he was in Bunker Labs, I sat down with him with a napkin and showed him, hey, I was like, this is what I'm trying to build. And I was like, instead of being the store, we can be the mall. And now we're in a mall that has a mall full of veteran-owned businesses. And so those are just small stories of veteran entrepreneurs that, made it through VGA. You saw them, you met them, you saw them on stage at that organization at MIC. Those are examples of what's come through Veterans Growing America. So we allow veterans, military spouses, and dependents to vend at Veterans Growing America because we believe the entire family serves. Just like they serve in the military, in entrepreneurship, you're going to need your entire family to have your back. If you don't, your business will fail. And it won't be because of money. It'll be because you need that support, because entrepreneurship is hard.
It absolutely is. And it's all connected with in our family, within our networks. It's all about supporting one another from the family up to the community, and seeing some of the people and businesses that you've mentioned, Ruben, Jai, KP, just to name a few that we had the pleasure of meeting just a few weeks ago. I love seeing veteran entrepreneurs take this as a route to continue to be of service once they decide to leave the military, or once they find it necessary for their lives to leave the military. And, for you, as you guys are growing and you're still in the early years of having your VGA storefront there in Virginia, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
What are the future plans for the organizations? I know you mentioned hopefully having chapters and stuff like that. Without giving too much away, kind of what do you see kind of happening in the next 2 to 5 years?
So just like I said, we would love to have stores all throughout the United States. We're building the model right now. It won't happen overnight, but we're building the model as we speak, and we'll be able to open up stores all throughout the United States. In addition to that, we'll have chapters of Veterans Growing America all throughout the United States, with entrepreneurs supporting themselves without giving away too much. Just understand that these communities and the way that we do things will multiply fast. I mean, our logo right now is right next to the Apple Store, Barnes and Noble. We're right across the street from Barnes and Noble, and hopefully, in fact, we will be on par with those organizations, and we will take veteran businesses from a table to their own store, from their own store to their own building. It's a matter of time before all of that happens. But it will happen. I mean, you already see it happening right now in front of you with individuals and businesses that started with us. And we don't do competition. We do co-opetition because there's so many different resources that can be used in our community that people don't know about. And through Veterans Growing America, we share those resources with our community. We share those resources in a way that, okay, where you are right now in your business, okay, you may need to go over to the Rosie Network. You may need to go over to Act Now to get some certifications. You may need to go over to this location or whatever you're trying to do business. And we share that information with our community in a way that will help them grow.
That's incredible. You know, when we come to your area this month, I'm really looking forward to seeing some of the pop-ups there. I love how you're putting your vendors directly in front of customers so that they can start generating their first sales when they're starting out and getting a path forward by being amongst like-minded and like-hearted individuals that are looking to continue to serve, you know. But we also know that within our community, there is an increased rate of suicide and suicidal thoughts for many, many different reasons. And being able to, you know, lead somebody to a purpose and lead somebody to the hope to be able to move forward to the next day is a great service that you're giving. And I just want to know if you have a further message of hope that somebody for somebody that is currently struggling with these thoughts.
So it's in our name, right? Veterans Growing America. I'm going to share this with you, and most people don't even know this, but the Fortune 500 companies that you shop it with right now were started by us, by veterans. Think about that. Have you heard of this company called Nike? You heard of those guys? Started by a veteran. Have you heard of Walmart? Started by a veteran. Have you heard of UPS? Started by a veteran. FedEx, Baskin Robbins, AOL. These are organizations that were started by veterans. And they started in somebody's garage. They started with a dream. They started with someone just really thinking about they can make a difference or a change in someone's life. And you're doing something at home right now that somebody will buy from. They will buy your passion, your purpose, they will buy that from you. And entrepreneurship is so cool because when you sell that first item, you're like, oh my God, they bought that from me. I remember making my first sale as an entrepreneur. It was so scary and so fun at the same time. I sat across and I sold my first leadership training. I remember sitting across from the person that was going to sign the check. And I said, this is how much it cost. And they asked for it at a cheaper price. And I said, I'm giving you the best price that I can. And my heart was beating like crazy. And then they said, yes. And I could have ran through a wall at that time, but I held my composure like I had been doing that before. And as soon as I got out of there, I was just like, ah! And so I guess my message of hope, to people is there's always something on the other side there for you tomorrow. And I just need you to dream big and hope for a better life. And it will be what your thought will become a thing. And so if you put good thoughts up there, great things will happen. If you put bad thoughts in there, bad things will happen. So you're in charge of this. This will do exactly what you tell it to do. If you say to yourself, I'm going to be great, I'm going to be amazing, you will believe yourself. Continue to tell yourself that. Look at yourself in the mirror and be like, hey, this is going to be a great day. And then when you feel bad, right, smile and look in the mirror and raise your hands up. It actually does something for you. And then if you need a little something else, take that walk. And if you can't walk, run. And if you can't run, crawl or do something. But, get that blood pumping through your system, and it will definitely help you out on the other side. And don't be afraid to call somebody. Call that person that believes in you and get them to pump you up. That's what I do. When I'm feeling bad, I'll be like, ooh, let me call this person right here. They always got my back.
Thank you so much for those words. Veterans have so much to give. They have such a deep desire to continue to be of service. And I just, hope they hear your words and follow your journey and what you're doing with Veterans Growing America. Donnell, where can people find and connect with you to continue to learn and network within your community?
All they have to do is just type in Veterans Growing America and you'll find me. Type Veterans Growing America into Google and it will take you directly to us. We're the only ones that have the name. Even if you type veterans in there, it'll probably take you to the top of your search engine. But you can find us, veteransgrowingamerica.com, Veterans Growing America on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on TikTok. Actually, don't use TikTok. I don't like that. But I don't use it. It's not that I don't like it. I don't use it. And then we're just getting back on Twitter, but the best way to find us is on Facebook or Instagram. And then you can find me on LinkedIn at Donnell Johns. And then you can find our business on LinkedIn at Veterans Growing America.
Well, Donnell, thank you so much for joining me here on the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast. It's been an honor chatting with you.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
And thank you for taking the time to listen to Donnell's inspiring story during your walk. If you'd like to further support our mission, consider becoming a Patreon. We really rely on the support of our patrons to continue bringing inspiring stories like Donnell's to our listeners and sustain the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran mission. Your contribution will help us in creating more content and providing motivation for staying active every day. Join us on Patreon to be a part of this meaningful journey. And I just wanted to remind you that the 1 Mile, 1 Veteran podcast is now on Reese Across America Radio, accessible through iHeartRadio, Odyssey, and the TuneIn app. So spread the word about Donnell's episode.